Connection. This is the Irv Homer Show, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you courtesy of irvhomer.com. And that's where we're broadcasting from. And we have been on the air now, I think, about 3 months. And have been doing rather well. The audience is growing by leaps and bounds. The email response is great. 4 months, actually. And if you're new to the program, or if you've just gotten some information about the program, I consider it to be totally unique and different from other commercial programs, because as a professional broadcaster, I have the freedom and latitude to do what I want to do, say what I want to say, as long as it's the truth, and try to be as close to the truth as possible. When I tell you it's an opinion, I will let you know it's an opinion. When I tell you it's the truth, you can debate the truth, you can argue the truth, but the truth will be heard, and the truth manages to stand up over the period of time. And I criticize the media that I love dearly and has been very good to me, both growing in the past 40 years in talk radio and making a lot of money at it and making a lot of friends and probably made quite a few enemies. But I have to say this in all honesty. I appeared on Channel 6 on Inside Story on Sunday morning, once, as they say, in a Piram Coilage, which means whenever the spirit moves them over there, they put me on as a guest panelist on Sunday. Their ratings, incidentally, are in the toilet. They follow George Stephanopoulos, but Inside Story has no ratings whatsoever. But it is a public service broadcast. It was never meant as a commercial venture, so because of the diversity and the political correctness, they now have diverse people on of every race: Spanish, black, Puerto Rican, African, you name it, Jews, we're all over the place. But it was never meant to be a rating grabber. And the ratings since the original four being Claude Lewis, African American, Brian Tierney, who is now the publisher of the Philadelphia Daily News and the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is dying a slow death, and Carol Celine, former editor of Philadelphia Magazine, and yours truly, Irv Homer. We had ratings, and we generated a lot of ratings. But I can't say what the reason is, that they don't want me there, and I really don't care, as long as they send me the 2 checks they still owe me, which they will, because Mickey Mouse doesn't pay his bills that fast. That's right, Disney owns Channel 6. But I'm happy to make a personal appearance. But the reason I'm saying it is, no matter where I go, people know me. And it's one of the gratuitous feelings of being in the show business, I suppose, or being in the entertainment business, or talk radio or television. And I just feel grateful that people do remember me. I was at a restaurant last night, and, well, there must have been about 20 people that came over, and we sat and talked, and the bar was crowded, and there were about 5 or 6 guys there and 2 or 3 tables of folks, and it was just warming. Well, where are you, Irv? Why aren't you on the radio? Why don't we hear you? So I handed out all the cards for this program tonight that I do, and told them that if they go to my website at www.irvhomer.com, they can get archives of previous programs of the last 4 months. And they were so gratified that it was mind-boggling to me. But it makes you feel good. And so far that I've been out, I've never met people. Oh no, I met one gentleman that wasn't too happy with me. And I was having some a tire repaired at SDS on Street Road. You know, that company, that socialist company, STS. Oh yeah, they're socialist. You see, the people that work at STS own it. It's owned and operated by the people. That's socialism. Anyway, there was an African American gentleman there, and he was sitting there, and the manager, Ken, nice guy, mentioned my name, and I sat down, and the other sharing me, he said, I know you. And I said, yes, sir. He says, I hope you do. And yes, he says, I listen to you once in a while. Mm-hmm. I could tell he wasn't happy with me, but so I just didn't pursue it any further. So every once in a while I run into someone who's not happy, and you shouldn't be. But the reason most people don't like me is because they listen out of context. They hear something and out of context, and they don't hear the whole story. And that's one of the reasons, I suppose, that Paul Harvey has been so successful in telling the rest of the story. Be that as it may, we try to tell you the rest of the story and bring you information and a perspective that you don't find because apparently, not because they miss, but media just can only put so much in to get your attention. And stories that affect you and me very seldom get to the press because the press. There's an old saying in the media: if it bleeds, it leads. In other words, if there's a shooting, that leads. And if there's a fire, an automobile accident, a rape, that's what the general public is interested in. They're not interested in going into in-depth studies of what's going on and why it's happening and what. We don't have the patience to do that, right, gang? We don't have the patience to read books and investigate and look into things and form a perspective and figure it out for yourself. So we listen to the Limbaughs and listen to the cackleheads. That's a new word I just coined for cackleheads on radio, and they abuse you, and you're too dumb to know it. As long as you kiss their behinds, oh, you're the greatest caller, you're a great American, blah, blah. You just challenge them guys. You start getting, and they'll twist and turn it around. Well, that's a technique that they use now, but we never used it on the original talk radio format. And I want to get into something on the original talk format, ladies and gentlemen, on tonight's program. But I think the big story was, of course, today, Mr. Barack Obama's press conference. And he spoke rather vaguely about what he intends to do when he becomes the president on January the 20th, but also made it very clear that he's not the president yet. And he had his financial advisors behind him. And I'd say there were about 10 or 15 behind him. People whose names that if I read them all off, you'd recognize. And as I was looking at the group of financial experts behind President-elect Barack Obama, I'll be damned, I didn't find a socialist in that bunch. Now, why would Barack Obama, who the cackleheads always call a socialist, to put a socialist perspective ahead, have all of the heavy capitalists behind him, including Warren Buffett? Now, you're going to try to tell me that Warren Buffett is a socialist? Or that George Soros is a socialist? Or that Paul Volcker is a socialist? Or the people that are part of the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary, that they're socialists? Don't you understand how these people, these cackleheads, are conning you people? Now, I heard Nitwit Hannity, Insanity Hannity, after Barack Obama's speech. And he's talking about the fact that Obama never answered the question as to whether or not he's going to charge 5% tax on those making over $200,000 a year. Insanity Hannity, why don't you look at those people behind the financial advisors of Mr. Barack Obama and call Paul Volcker a socialist, or call the head of the Fed a socialist. You see, folks, we're being led, the GOP and the right-wing nutcases, like the so-called right, they are so pissed that they lost. They don't know what to do next. They're going totally bonkers. They're going crazy. And they mentioned Bill Ayers, and we'll go through that, Reverend Wright. But isn't it funny that they never mention the guys who really screwed the Republican Party and screwed us registered Republicans? Newt Gingrich, Republican; Tom DeLay, powerhouse in the Republican, thrown out. Ethics, stealing, corruption. Newt Gingrich, Tom DeLay. The king of defense, Donald Rumsfeld, who got us involved in a war that we can't win. No, we're not winning. I don't care what General Petraeus says. I don't care what George Bush says. And I don't care what any of the nutcases like Bill O'Reilly say. And of course, we also got Tom DeLay and Trent Lott. Why don't the cackleheads mention the people who the Republicans, the Ted Stevenses, who destroyed the Republican Party? It wasn't Barack Obama that destroyed it. It was the Republicans, the managers of which, who were those who were so important and so damn determined to impeach Bill Clinton, They were salivating with all of the information during the impeachment procedure of Bill Clinton. But isn't it amazing, folks, that with all of their rhetoric for 45 hours a week since the year 2000, and before that to the year 2000 or 1996, the 8 years of, or 1992 rather, the 8 years of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton now are loved more than Newt Gingrich, Tom DeLay, Donald Rumsfeld, or Trent Lott. Now, why don't these cackleheads mention that? And why don't some of the folks in America recognize the fact that it wasn't Bill Clinton's impeachment of having an affair with Monica Lewinsky that destroyed the Republican Party? It was the crumbs that were determined to go after Bill Clinton and destroy him and destroy the Democrats and destroy the whole concept of liberalism, that they destroyed themselves. They ate them. They rotted from within. The Democrat Party didn't destroy the Republicans. Liberalism didn't destroy the Republicans. The Republicans, with their corruption and their vindictiveness and their hatred for the Clintons, destroyed themselves. And no matter what they say for the next 4 years, that Barack Obama is the President of the United States, you ain't going to change my mind, because you guys destroyed yourself. I'm a registered Republican. You can check my record. Who I voted for, you'll never know. And the reason that I'm outraged, where some of you folks think I'm a Barack Obama supporter or a Democrat, you don't know what I am. I deal with the issues. But I never heard such vitriol. I never heard such hatred against people. The way, since the Clinton rose to the power of President of the United States, have I heard the family, the Clintons, beaten the way they've been beaten. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. But what has happened? Who's the most popular man in the United States when he travels abroad today? Bill Clinton. And who's the most popular senator in the United States? Hillary Clinton. Democrat. So the American people have not been conned by the cackleheads, fortunately. The boobuses have been conned, and some of you are boobuses out there, because you don't know that you've been conned. Search yourself first in the Republican Party and find out the reason that you failed. American people are not stupid. Wasted millions and millions of dollars to find out whether Bill Clinton had a sexual affair in the White House. You're a disgrace. And the cackleheads on radio and television, your days are numbered. Take my word for it. And what I want to talk about basically is the fear that the cackleheads on the right are putting into your mind. And I've heard it from the day that Barack Obama became, or even Clinton or any of the Democrats announced their candidacy for the President of the United States. They're going to take all our money away from us. They're going to take our wealth away from us. They're going to take from the rich and give to the poor. And they're going to do this and they're going to do that and they're going to do the other thing. And now you hear the cackleheads like Mike Gallagher and the other right-wing cackleheads on radio talking about the fairness doctrine. Oh my God, the fairness doctrine. They want to impose the... Now, isn't it amazing, ladies and gentlemen? Not one of them have explained to you what the fairness doctrine is. All you hear from the cackleheads is, we're going to fight to keep our freedom of speech alive, and Gallagher is having a conniption this morning. And Insanity Hannity. And the drug addict Limbaugh. The fairness doctrine. Does anybody know what the fairness doctrine is about? Have any of the cackleheads on the right, the conservatives that are so concerned about the fairness doctrine, ever explained to you what the fairness doctrine is or what it was when it was implemented? The answer is no. There isn't one person out there who knows what the fairness doctrine is, what is proposed in the fairness doctrine, or what it was like to be in talk radio when the fairness doctrine was alive and well and working. And guess who worked under the fairness doctrine? I don't think there's another talk show host in America, which is a big, broad statement that I'm making, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think there is another broadcaster alive today who still has some kind of voice, whether it's on a little program like this program that we do here on the Irv Homer Show, or whether it's on Inside Story once in a P.M. Coilage. It's still on the air except Irv Homer, yours truly. I worked under the fairness doctrine. I worked on the radio station WXUR. That was the beginning, the radio station that came under attack, that instituted, as a result of the broadcasting on WXUR, that the fairness doctrine became a reality. Now, WXUR radio was owned by the Red Lion Broadcasting Company out of Red Lion, Pennsylvania. It was owned by the Norris family. The Norris family is the family that Norristown, Pennsylvania was named after. An old line, stately, pro-American, Presbyterian family of impeccable moral standards. And a gentleman by the name of the Reverend Carl McIntyre bought time on WXUR radio. The fact of the matter is that the 20th Century Reformation Hour that Carl McIntyre started owned the Faith Theological Seminary in Elkins Park. I believe it was the former Stotesbury Estate. And that was a fundamentalist Christian seminary for fundamentalist Christian ministers to learn the Bible and the literal translation of the Bible, and then they were sent around the world as missionaries of fundamental Christians. When the Norris family bought WXUR and other radio stations, Carl McIntyre loaned the Norris family $500,000 taken on a mortgage of Faith Theological Seminary to buy the stations, and loaned the Norris family, Red Lion Broadcasting, $500,000. Now, Carl McIntyre was a fundamentalist minister at that time, and he was broadcasting on about 300 to 600 radio stations around the country. He was an anti-communist, pro-capitalist, pro-America, not a hater. He didn't believe in abortion. He believed in the fundamental belief of Christian beliefs. And believe it or not, many Christians who really study Christianity don't like it. And many of the things that Carl McIntyre said as a fundamentalist Christian minister, a lot of Christians didn't like it, what he said. He was vehemently opposed to the Roman Catholic Church. Said that the church, the Roman Catholic Church, was a scarlet, should have had the sign of a prostitute on the priests and nuns' heads. He was very friendly with a gentleman by the name of Ian Paisley, the Presbyterian fiery minister in Northern Ireland, who was a strong supporter of the IRA. I met Ian Paisley when he came to America, spoke with him, made no bones about it that he thought the Pope was a scarlet harlot. That's what he called him. And then went to prove it. Talked about the statues in the churches and no other images before me and all those things. Made sense to me. And defied the Roman Catholic Church to challenge him, and McIntyre challenged them. McIntyre proved that the Eastern Orthodox Church of Russia was nothing but a haven for KGB agents that came to America masking as Orthodox, Russian Orthodox ministers and priests. And so Carl McIntyre was allowed to talk on the 300 to 600 radio stations they had, and he did it all by subscription. Never had advertisers. Do you like what I said? Send money. He lived in a very modest home in Collingswood, New Jersey, and in Collingswood, New Jersey was the home of the 20th century Reformation era. Well, Carl was doing very well, fighting an anti-communist, supporting the troops in Vietnam, sent people over there to record the American servicemen there for Christmas messages, Thanksgiving messages to their family, all at the expense of his constituents. He bought and saved Cape May, New Jersey. Cape May, New Jersey was falling apart. There was a big building down there called the Christian Admiral. Big hotel on the coast in Cape May. And he refurbished the Christian Admiral. I mean, the history of the Christian Admiral Hotel. Presidents stayed there and dignitaries stayed there, and it was just in a shambles. And when Carl went into Cape May, bought the Christian Admiral, he bought 3 or 4 other hotels in Cape May along the beach, and he furnished them, had his young people who went to the seminary, kids during the summertime who were fundamentalist Christians, they all went down there, they worked there. I took my family down there. And I took it down there because Cape May at that time was kind of run down, but it was growing because of Carl McIntyre and the investment of the fundamentalist Christians that followed him. And we stayed, my wife and I and the 2 boys, we stayed in some of their hotels. We went there on the weekends. Now, he was such a fundamentalist minister that the swimming pools at the hotels were not open on Sunday. There was no swimming in the pools on Sunday. No alcohol served. And you could get the finest home-cooked meals in those hotels in Cape May that you got any place. That was my introduction to fundamentalist Christians. Not right-wing kooky birds like you've got today, not the Jerry Falwell scum, not the Pat Robertson fake phony frauds, not the people that are, not the Jim and Tammy Bakers. But Carl made one mistake. Made a bad mistake. And that mistake was he opposed the Vietnam War the way we were fighting it. He believed as I believed, and I guess that was one of the reasons that I had such a close relationship with a fundamentalist Christian, me being an agnostic Jew. And Carl's attitude was, you get in a war to win. And the whole Vietnam War, if you study the history of the Vietnam War, you'll see that was a bigger fraud than this war that we're fighting now. But I, as a lone voice on the radio, can't convince thousands of Americans how Kennedy deceived us, how Lyndon Johnson deceived us, how Richard Nixon finally saw that, hey, eventually the truth's going to get out. But Vietnam, if you study the history of the Vietnam War, that was a bigger con job than this one. And who was one of the instrument leaders of getting us involved in the Vietnam War? Was Cardinal Spellman of New York, a Roman Catholic, head of the Diocese of New York. He started a movement called the Friends of Vietnam, and his theory was that if the communists came down from the north, they would kill all the Catholics in Vietnam, and we had to go in there, and he talked Kennedy into it against Eisenhower's wishes. If you remember Tom Dooley, Dr. Tom Dooley? So you got to study this. And as a result of the movement of Cardinal Spellman in New York, Roman Catholic head of the Archdiocese, Carl McIntyre went after him for setting up this fake, phony concept that all the Christians were going to be killed in Vietnam if the communists took over. Well, at that time, they said, now folks, WXUR Radio, of which Carl McIntyre broadcast from in the Philadelphia area, you're lucky if you heard it out of the parking lot in media. It's where the headquarters was. They were so scared that they decided to come up with a thing called the Fairness Doctrine. And so we that were broadcasting, I wasn't being paid for the programming. I was just learning the business at that time. A gentleman by the name of Ben Catone, who was Cantone, if you want an attorney, if you want to go into your computers and search it out, you can find it. Ben Catone was then an FCC attorney. And Ben drew up the Fairness Doctrine to satisfy the LBJ administration and the Nixon administration, to say we've got to do something about Carl McIntyre on these 300 to 600 radio stations because he's starting to make sense to the people. Even the non-believers, even the non-Christians were starting to believe, hey, we lost 55,000 men there. What is this? 200,000 injured. Vietnamese people being killed. They did have elections in South Vietnam, and our guy lost. So we sent more troops in there because our guy lost. Harrison Salisbury, the son-in-law of the editor of the New York Times, went over there and exposed it. Well, Carl McIntyre was part of this expose, and so they instituted the thing called the Fairness Doctrine, drawn up by attorney Ben Catone. Well, the road to hell, ladies and gentlemen, is paved with good intentions. Yes, there was a fundamentalism, there was a right-wing conservatism, but an honest one. Not the fake, phony frauds you have today. You Carl McIntyre don't live in a big fancy home and have billions of dollars with air-conditioned puppy mills and stuff like that. He was a true, honest, believing Christian who didn't want government aid. That's right. Not like the fake, phony synagogues and temples and churches that we have in America today. Because we all get, you do, I don't belong to a synagogue, so I don't know. But you all want that tax-exempt status for your houses of worship. Well, Carl didn't want that. He didn't want it for Faith Theological Seminary. He didn't want it for other real estate that he had. He didn't want it for the radio stations. He didn't want it for the fundamentalist Christian schools. Because Carl's theory was this, which is an honest theory, and honesty will never get out of the parking lot, but the lie will go around the world 10 times. Carl said, if I take money from the federal government, they are going to infringe on my right to be a free-thinking and free-preaching Christian. I was involved in a fight with a fundamentalist Christian day school out in Delaware County. And the gentleman's name was Mr. Nazarian. Never forget him, a fine gentleman. And he said to me, Irving, he said, you're an agnostic and you're Jewish, of the Jewish faith. I said, yes. He said, well, why would you be helping me and my Christian day school? I said, because number one, you're an American. Number two, the government has no right to tell you that you must take their money or take their tax exemption. As long as you don't teach anti-Americanism or sedition or treason, you have a right to preach your gospel any way you want to. And if you don't want government money for your school, if you don't want a tax exemption, you shouldn't have to take it. Well, the government forced them to take the tax exemption so that the government could then infringe in 12 areas of the Christian day school's curriculum. I hope I'm not boring you folks, but this is such important stuff that you got to hear it. I know I'm long-winded with this, but I am passionate about this. Well, rather than do that, Mr. Nazarian, true to his Christian fundamentalist faith, shut the school down. Now, every religious institution in America that receives a tax exemption status for your school or your church is required by the government that gives you the tax exemption to infringe in your curriculum so that you can't teach your Christianity the way it's written. You can't teach your Judaism the way it's written. Oh, you can teach it, but you try to get accredited after they graduate. It won't happen. So on one hand, they'll give you the tax exemption and say, yes, we're going to capitulate to the religious beliefs of the American people. On the other hand, they'll say, but you will also adhere to our educational guidelines so that you can only be accredited if you teach what we want you to teach, history as we want it taught, and not get involved in the political process. You will be forbidden to support a political candidate from your pulpit. Well, you know what happens, folks. As I said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Now you got ministers in the black churches screaming about Obama. Got right-wing 33 ministers, preachers rather, out in California, defied the ban, took the IRS, is still involved in court, saying we'll support John McCain if we want to, and you go take our tax exemption away from us. We dare you. Now, you're not going to hear about this on Insanity Hannity or drug dealing Limbaugh or that crazy Mike Gallagher. Any more than you're going to hear about the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 Republicans that destroyed the Republican Party during the impeachment process of Bill Clinton. Well, Carl McIntyre and the strength that the fundamentalist movement had in America, not supported by Christians, but by those fundamentalists who believed in the Word of God. And so Carl raised money to build a college in Cape May called Shelton College. And he built a college called Shelton College in Cape May, New Jersey, bought and paid for the ground, back of the Christian Admiral. Finished the college, would not accept a dime from the government, and none of the kids that went there, or any of the Christian fundamentalist schools in the country, were allowed to take any government loans or grant. They had to pay for it themselves. How did they pay for it? They worked in the hotels that the 20th Century Reformation had. They got them jobs with other fundamentalist Christian companies. They paid their own tuition. They didn't want anything from the government. Unheard of. They wouldn't accept it. And so when they applied for accreditation from the New Jersey Department of Education, they said, sure, you can have the college there. You can have a 4-year course. We won't accredit you, though. So what would be the sense of sending your kid to Shelton College in Cape May if you weren't going to accreditation? And all McIntyre had to say is, yes, we will accept government money. We will accept your loans and grants, the same as the Catholic Church does, the same as the synagogues do, the same as the Jewish institutions do, and you can infringe in our curriculum in maybe the 10 to 12 or 20 ways. He wouldn't do that. And so Shelton College never got accredited. After the Vietnam War was over, that was the beginning of the end of the 20th Century Reformation hour, and Carl McIntyre got older. You can go down to Cape May, New Jersey now, and where the Christian Admiral used to stand, you'll see $500,000, $600,000 homes. But you will see the skeletal remains of Shelton College there. I was there about 6 months ago. And I asked one of the residents there in Cape May, why don't they tear it down? They said, well, It has asbestos in there, and it has other type of contaminants in there, and the city don't want to spend the money to decontaminate the building, so they rather just close it up and leave it sit there. You go down there and see Shelton, ask for Shelton College. Go to Cape May, go up the north end of Cape May and ask to see Shelton College. So now we're broadcasting under the Fairness Doctrine. And what was the whole Fairness Doctrine about? Oh yeah, we took phone calls. But on WXUR, Carl McIntyre, believing in freedom of speech, not like CBS, not like CNN, not like C-SPAN, not like MSNBC, where they got one windbag, one cackle head, like Limbaugh, cackle, and yet, oh, we'll give you a chance to speak. Yeah, you get 2 minutes to hang up on you, and then they talk about you. That's their equal time. Now, folks, you listen to, you call that equal time? You call that equal time? After they hang up on you and they talk about you and tell you how dumb you are? That's not talk radio. That's not equal time. Nothing fair about it. Well, the Fairness Doctrine at that time said, quote, if you attack anyone, and it will be the determination of the listener or the FCC if they monitor you, you must give them equal time to respond. In other words, if I attack Fidel Castro for 20 minutes in a tirade, I would have to offer Fidel Castro 20 minutes of time to respond. That's all. That was the whole Fairness Doctrine. Didn't say anything that I couldn't attack Fidel Castro. Didn't say anything I couldn't attack President Lick. Nothing. Just said you've got to offer them equal time to respond if you personally attack. Now, if you're doing a news story, and this is what was unique, we had news in which the news story was reported. Maybe against a Democrat, maybe against a Republican. That was a news story. If you extrapolated from that news story on your talk program and made it a personal attack, calling somebody a communist or a Marxist or a liberal, then you had to give that person equal time to respond to the attack that you made against them. Does that sound like it's unfair to you? But what the Fairness Doctrine forgot to put in the Fairness Doctrine was this. And there were 19 liberal groups that filed charges against WXUR radio. A 500-watt radio. No, it wasn't the conservatives. It was the liberals that filed the Fairness Doctrine. They filed 19 groups, the AFL-CIO, the Black Panthers, NAACP, the Anti-Defamation League of Neighborhoods. I mean, you're not going to look at a whole list of them. Just pump up WXUR and put Fairness Doctrine on the computer, you'll find it. The fact that you didn't respond, let's assume they attacked Irv Homer, and I get a request from the radio station that we attacked you and here's a copy of the tape. You have 10 minutes of time on our radio station to respond. Now, if I didn't respond to your request for me to appear on your radio station, Fairness Doctrine said you didn't adhere to what the guidelines were, and therefore you were guilty of violating the Fairness Doctrine. That was unfair. In other words, I think I attacked some lawyer or something. I sent that lawyer a confirmation and a tape of the attack I made. He said he refused and declined to come on. Well, I gave it to the program manager. He said, we're in trouble. I said, the public don't know about it. I said, can I read this on the air that I gave him equal time? He says, no. I said, in other words, the mere fact that he didn't appear even after I had given him a request to come on the air is a violation of the Fairness Doctrine? He said, yeah. I said, that's crazy. Who the hell ever thought that thing up? Well, now when the Fairness Doctrine attacked WXUR radio, and of course, as I said, WXUR took a $500,000 loan on Faith Theological Seminary to give to the Norris family to put fundamental Christianity on the air. They broke the station financially going into court. Now, the most amazing thing about the whole case is this, ladies and gentlemen. Ben Catone, who was the attorney for the Federal Communications Commission, left the commission and defended WXUR radio station against the FCC that he used to be the attorney for, because he realized at the time that the fairness doctrine was unfair. Now, there is no question in my mind that the fairness doctrine, and I have a copy of it here, it's about that thick. It's in plain language. If it were regrouped and restructured and monitored, could be instituted so that Limbaugh and Hannity and Gallagher, they could all remain on the air. There would be no problem with it. But the stations would have to have diversity on the program and on the station. And what made WWDB so successful was that we were in the infancy in 1975 of putting together a talk format in which you had 3 hours of conservatism in the morning with Dominic Quinn, you had middle of the road with Susan Bray, you had radical middle of the road with Irv Homer, you had a semi-conservative with Bernie Herman, you had African American on at night with Bernie McCain. We had a whole diverse opinion. So you could tune in to WWDB and you had Frank Ford, ultra-liberal. So you had liberalism and conservative on the station. There was a balance there. There's no balance on these stations today. And all the fairness doctrine today says is that you should have balance in your programming. That's all. Not that you should have Air America, which is liberal, and you should have WPHT that's conservative. That's all it said. So wouldn't it be great to be able to tune into one talk station in Philadelphia that covers the 5-county area, in which if you wanted to hear liberalism, you could listen in the morning. You want to hear conservatism, you listen in the middle of the day. You want to hear liberal and conservative, they will have 2 guests on. One liberal, one conservative, have a debate going on. That's the fairness doctrine. So what are these cackleheads worried about? What are these cackleheads worried about? The fairness doctrine is scaring the living hell out of them. There isn't even, I've requested copies of the fairness doctrine that would be proposed by Nancy Pelosi or by Harry. There is none. There is none. But these cackleheads to the right that are on the air, the Limbaughs, the Gallaghers, the Medveds, the Hannitys, are leading a cause celeb. The Jews are going to take over Germany. The liberals are going to take away our freedom of speech. They're lying through their teeth. They're lying, looking right into the microphone, ladies and gentlemen. Lying. Nobody wants to take away their freedom of speech one bit. Rachel Maddow, even that crazy Al Franken, should be a diversified program. And take a look at Inside Story. Inside Story has a diversity of opinions, a diversity of religions, a diversity of color. That's fair broadcasting. And it's obvious, ladies and gentlemen, that fairness doesn't hurt. You remember at one time you only had white baseball players. And who was the first black player that the New York Yankees hired? Oh, I forget his name. I'm not a big sports fan. Oh, if a black starts playing baseball, it's going to ruin baseball. Oh, my God, if they let a black play football, if they let a black play basketball, if they integrate, the whole... Anybody here hate Donovan McNabb? Randall Cunningham? Any of the black ball players? Did it hurt the black? They're making more money today. Those white honkies wouldn't have made that kind of money had it not been for the black players. So it's amazing that sports can be diversified. with blacks and whites when there was a big fear that a blacks ever got into sports. The end of the world was coming. How America praised Joe Louis when Joe Louis knocked out Max Schmeling. Look at Jack Johnson, one of the first black fighters. Hated, vilified. Because this fear that the blacks are going to take over America were instituted by the cackleheads of the Limbaugh and the Hannitys and the Gallaghers and the Medveds. To be a man, an entertainer like Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong, that were not permitted to live in the hotel in which they entertained white people. Did it ruin the entertainment business? Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock. We got over that, but we never got over integrating radio. Because if the liberals come in, they're going to take away our freedom of speech. Oh, the boogeyman is coming. So don't be misled by this fair. Now, and the other thing that amazes me. Now, I don't know whether the media knows that I'm alive or whether I'm dead, and I really don't give a damn. I don't have an ego that I have to worry about whether somebody's going to recognize me. In fact, the young lady I go with today now, since my lovely wife passed away, she says, Irving, you look like a bum when you go out. Do you realize who you are? I says, who am I? I'm a person. No, you're a celebrity. No, leave me alone. Well, I'm forbidden to wear my favorite blue sweatsuit out now in public. I'd like that sweat. It's about 4 sizes too big for me. Got a couple of threads hanging from it. She says, you ought to be disgraced to go out in that. So now I have to dress like a gentleman. Try my best not to. But my career, ladies and gentlemen, has been very good. Never got to my head. Was I afraid of the fairness doctrine? No. Would I be afraid of it today? No. But isn't it amazing that the media moguls know that I'm alive and know that I worked under the fairness doctrine? I haven't been called to be a guest on any program in the country to explain what it was like to work under the fairness doctrine, or to explain the fact that I was broadcasting on WXUR radio, owned by Red Lion Broadcasting, when the first case in the country that imposed the fairness doctrine on, I was working there. But they won't put me on. You know why? And explain to you, because just like I explained to you tonight, they don't want the truth to be known. Because they can get followers like Boobas America, who scare the hell out of them. We're going to lose the voice of reason. We're going to lose the voice of Rush. We're going to lose the voice of... You need somebody to teach you to hate. You're sick in the head. I go back to the concept when once I was called the bleeding heart. And I says, holy mackerel, I'm a bleeding heart. Where did that come from? What I remember as a kid when my mother died, I was 3 years old. And my mom died in our house. And I went next door with my sister, and we stayed at Mr. and Mrs. Acker's house. And they were Roman Catholics. Dear, dear, sweet people. And I looked up over the bed, and there was a cross of Jesus, and this thing sticking in his heart, and the blood was coming out of his heart. And I was a kid, scared the living hell out of me. Whoa! I was 3 years old. I did this thing with the blood, and he's got nails in his arms and nails in his legs. He's got a thing here, and a blood. And it dawned on me. That's where they got the idea that if you're a bleeding heart, you've used the expression, I'm a bleeding heart liberal. Well, your Jesus must have been a bleeding heart liberal, because he's the only one I know of that had a heart that was bleeding. And yet you crazy people will be led by the nose, by the Limbaughs, by the Hannitys, by these guys, to being a bleeding heart. You don't even know what the hell it means. Where would bleeding heart liberal come from if not from Jesus Christ, your own God? If I were a Christian, I would consider that to be a badge of honor, to be known as a bleeding heart liberal. I'm following the work of my Lord. Who the hell are you, Limbaugh, to tell me I'm a bleeding heart liberal? This is the mentality of the masses today that frightens this you-know-what out of me. Holy mackerel. It's 10 minutes of 7. I blew 15 minutes of this program. Well, I think, Mike, in Pennsville, I explained pretty well what the fairness doctrine is. Oh, incidentally, one other thing about the fairness doctrine. As a result of radio station WXUR going financially broke, not being removed by the FCC, Carl McIntyre decided to launch a radio station 3 miles off the coast of Atlantic City and broadcast from a pirate ship beyond the 3-mile limit of the United States. Got the ship, got the radio equipment, and we had a launching of the boat. There was only one problem. We couldn't find an engineer who didn't get seasick. So while we were beaming the 500 watts across the 3-mile limit, we had an engineer who was in the engine room throwing up. Oh, you can't very well be a radio engineer and throw up at the same time. So that experiment failed. And so that was the end and the demise of radio station WXUR. I'm Irv Homer. Once again, we're broadcasting from irvhomer.com. My website is www.irvhomer.com. You can email me at evilerv@irvhomer.com. And RGH Computer Services, folks, has put this together for me to get to you and you to hear me and to respond either by email or by telephone. And I do have a telephone number. That number is 215-253-8877. You can call in now if you want to. We'll take some phone calls. 215-253-8877. And once again, this is brought to you by RGH Computer Services, especially, ladies and gentlemen, with this identity theft and computer hacking and security with your computer system. Your files are important. Do you know how to protect them? Well, RGH can tell you how to do it and show you how to do it. You just call them at 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. And yes, I own the company, so I'm proud of the work that we do. My son runs it, of course. RGH Computer Services. You're dealing with Irv Homer for all your computer needs. And that number is 215-322-8685. Let's go to the telephone, and our telephone number once again, 215-253-8877. Good evening. How are you, sir? Hello there.
We lost the call.
Okay. Let's go to the chat room. The chat room is available, ladies and gentlemen. Irv, what about the new Israel fundamentalist group trying to take over their government? Bob from Memphis. What do I think about it? Shana, my dog, what do you think about it, Shana? Oh, you do, huh? Well, I think, and I mentioned it on last week's program, Bob from Memphis, Israel's problem is Israel's problem. Israel will solve its problems and not America. You must remember that Israel is a Jewish state. Right, Shana, be quiet.
I'm here.
That's my dog. Israel was founded as a salvation for the Jews. I'm not interested in theocracy, but I will tell you this. The fundamentalist Christians have taken over Vatican City. And Vatican City is a religious-owned, fundamentalist-owned entity. It has 100 and some council agreements throughout the world. Has its own postal department, has its own security force, has its own government. So if the Catholics can have a city called the Vatican City, then the Jews should be entitled to have a country of their own. What do I think about it? That's their problem. I don't live in Israel. I'm concerned about fundamentalism being taken over here. The Jews will do what the Jews have to do in Israel. America is not going to save them. Our chat room is open, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Irv Homer. Our telephone number, we do have time for your phone call, is 215-253-8877. 215-253-8877. One request I do have, I wish now that the election is over, that regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, will you take the damn signs down? I've seen enough of them. Take them down. Okay? We had enough politicking going on. I'm tired of seeing Frank Farrell's name. I'm tired of seeing Murphy's name. I'm tired of seeing Mannion's name. I'm tired of seeing Barack's name. I'm tired of seeing McCain's name. Take your signs down. They're getting on my nerves. You're also blocking my views sometimes. I'm Irv Homer. We do have time for one or two phone calls at 215-253-8877. Very interesting article here I didn't get into, but this is something I think that all people should be aware of. And the headline is, "The Pope Calls for Tolerance in Meeting with Muslims." And I just want to tell you how our allies are, folks. In this article from the Associated Press, the Philadelphia Inquirer today, in Saudi Arabia, folks, non-Muslims cannot worship in public, and Muslims who convert face death. The Pope also has spoken out about the plight of Christians in Iraq, where churches have been attacked and many people have been forced to flee. Once again, our ally, while we're worried about the Jews in Israel, in Saudi Arabia, if you're a Christian or a Jew, you cannot worship in public. And if you're a Muslim and you convert to Christianity or any other religion, you will be put to death. They are our allies in Saudi Arabia. Do you hear the cackleheads talking about that? Do you hear the cackleheads talking about the Muslim fundamentalists, Saudi Arabia, our buddies? Or do you just hear them talking about the liberals in Congress and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi? Ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not, this country went through a change. From the first black fighter that walked into a ring and beat the hell out of a white fighter, to the day where a black became president of the United States. America has changed, but the hearts of the people haven't changed any. Just because, when you hear these guys, "He's my president, I'm going to do everything I can to support him," you're so full of crap, it goes through your teeth. Why do you lie like that? The Republican Party and the cackleheads that are on radio today and television will do everything you can to break this administration, even if it means destroying America itself. You people on talk radio today are out to destroy anything that Barack Obama or Joe Biden will try to get through to benefit America, not only locally, nationally, or internationally. You're out to destroy him, and you don't give a rat's ass if you destroy America in the meantime. Don't con me that he's your president. You wouldn't accept Barack Obama if he walked up to you and gave you $1 million tax-free. You lying, fake, phony frauds, you ought to be damned ashamed of yourself. I'm waiting for one of these guys to have the courage to say, "I don't want Barack Obama as a black man to be the president of the United States. I don't know what he's going to do." But when you're lying the way you've lied in the past, the way you're lying today, you're not fooling me. We will continue this program once again, ladies and gentlemen, on Monday. we just about got an hour done. Thank you for your phone calls. Thank you for your website. Thank you for the chat room. Once again, the telephone number, and use the telephone number because we went to a great expense to put the phone lines in. It's 215-253-8877. I'm Irv Homer. Until the next time, have a good one.